So I talked a little bit yesterday about people lying about you. And it's interesting. The more visible you get, the more authority and responsibility you have. Um, People tend to target you. When I was anonymous and nobody knew me, nobody said anything. But when I'm in ministry or I'm in business or I'm in a place where I'm responsible for things, and for whatever reason, um, some people want the responsibility I have, or they just don't want me to have the authority that I have, and they will say things that are untrue. And a lot of times they are things that they've been told and they're passing on gossip. A lot of times it's just somebody being um, trying to cover their own tracks or whatever the reason, but it doesn't really make any difference why it happens. The reality is that it does. And then you've got one of two choices. You can stand up and fight for your rights and say, I'm a good person, I never did that. But how much easier it is to look at the person saying, you know me. Does that sound like something I would do? Does that strike you as the type of person that you know me to be? See, it's our testimony. In John, it says, whoever walks in the truth is brought into the light. And so it'll be shown visibly that what he has done has been done in the sight of God. And see, the reality of that is if you walk in the light, if you live a life that is in truth, if you live a life that is not deceptive, if you live a life that it has integrity, if you live a life that reflects the mind, the nature of God, if you live a life that reflects the purposes and obedience that God has for you and that what he's called you to, people will see it. When Scripture says, let your light so shine before men, that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. How much easier it is to not have to justify yourself. Just say, you know me. Now, there's been some things that somebody's saying I'm stealing things. And the people that were with me didn't even have to ask me if I took it, because they knew me well enough to know that that's just not something that I would do. And that gives me an opportunity to say, this is because of my faith. Because I love God and want to live in obedience to God, then those are things that I wouldn't do. And I can deflect that light from me to God. And that gives opportunity. And a lot of times we see when people are coming against us, we see it as an oppression. But God's saying this is an opportunity. This is an opportunity to once again be vindicated by me. God says, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. You leave it alone. I'll deal with that. You just live a life that's a testimony. And you don't have to worry about people believing lies about you, because if you live a life that doesn't reflect that, there are some people that are going to say things anyway. There are some people that are going to be hurtful. There's some people that are just going to be horrible human beings, actually. There's no other word for it. But that's between them and God. That's something that they're going to have to answer to God for. And isn't it great that they don't have to answer to you? You don't have to take that responsibility. You don't have to take that weight. You can just pass it off to God and say, you know what, I'm going to let you deal with it. There's certain times when you need to address some things. I'm not saying you don't. But having the wisdom to know that, just because somebody's off there barking or chirping doesn't necessarily mean it's a reflection on you. Sometimes it's a reflection on them. And you just let God do his work. Anyways, that's kind of where my head is at this morning, kind of processing a few things. And I hope that's been an encouragement to you. But I want to leave you with that verse again that says, the one that walks in the truth is brought into the light. So they that see him will know that what he does is done before God. Be encouraged.